just talk a little bit about when I started with the Army. I just happened to, I happened to just move to Duluth looking for a job. And because I was just coming from Panama, and when I was in Panama, I learned how to do the church bulletin at our church. And that's why the Salvation Army actually hired me, because I could actually do a church bulletin. And then they asked me if I could please just do a few, chits to give to people when they needed a meal or so. So I said, I can add that too. So I was running church bulletins and people coming in off the street, giving them a meal or so. And from there on, it kind of just grew. They found more and more jobs for me. Are you ready? Oh, and this is, so that's my story, how I got involved with the Salvation Army. I knew nothing about them before then, but I certainly learned a lot after that. We're going to talk about the Emergency Disaster Service. I was actually at 1997, I went to the Red River Valley and worked in the flood there, and it was really a terrible thing. We did a lot of, first of all, we had to find a big place to serve all the people. Then we did sandbagging, and it was quite an experience for me because that was my first big disaster. I did not know that was in my job description, by the way. And then the next disaster I was in was 1998, when St. Peter, they had that tornado, and it took down the church steeples and really wrecked a lot of things. We worked a lot down there. I was sitting in my office, and my boss came out of his office and he said, "Come on, we're going to St. Peter." And off we went. You didn't wait very long. And then in 2001, I went to 9/11. And I worked there for 2 weeks. And it was quite an experience. And I saw some wonderful things happen there, and then some very, very sad things. And after that, I went to Katrina. And so there was all kinds of different kinds of disasters. But the disasters that I actually think that are just as important are the ones that happen around your home. Sometimes just small things happen. A tree falls on a house, fire starts in a neighborhood, and it's going to burn houses. Surprisingly, they get a lot of calls for the fire department calls the Salvation Army, and they have a canteen, and they'll say, "Bring the canteen out," and you take the canteen out there, and you work to feed the firemen or even the people that might be impacted, even in small, disasters. So that's an ongoing thing. Anybody, you could be involved in your own disaster committee through a Salvation Army if you chose to be. They do the training and they give you a shirt so everybody knows who you are. You ready for the next one? This is a little awkward. Has anybody got any questions about the disasters? They have a whole disaster right here in Roseville They have a whole department that just deals with any kind of disaster in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So that's probably good information to have, because you can call the Salvation Army in Roseville. That's the divisional headquarters. This is a program that I got heavily involved in with the Salvation Army and Kiwanis. It is called the IDD program, iodine deficient disorder. Many, many people in foreign countries are missing iodine, which impacts your thyroid. And you can get very, very ill. And there's actually about 2 billion people in the world on a constant basis, because children are continue being born, that are missing iodine. We use iodized salt, so we don't have that problem so much. But in many of the foreign countries, they do have a serious problem. So Kiwanis International, which I think is in 88 countries right now, has a ongoing project called IDD, and every single Kiwanis club collects money and does fundraisings for that to help, and they work with UNICEF. So the UNICEF does the work, and we raise the money for UNICEF, and to provide just plain iodine or iodized salt for these countries. That's been an ongoing project for, I think, 15, 20 years now. So if you get to your local Kiwanis club, ask them about it. And the picture up there, he happens to be the international chair of the IDD project, Roger Moore. So I got to meet him at a convention, and of course I said, "Can I take your picture with you?" And of course it hit the paper, so. And that's, I don't know what the other one is, I can't read it. Oh, I got it right here. I think I got it written down here. Oh, that's, yeah. That was the Roger Moore one. So, and then, is this the one? Yeah, this is Jack Getz, yes. Jack Getz, he's the divisional commander. He's right here in Minneapolis at that time. And he wrote me this letter. I don't have much to say about it, except it was really, really kind of him to do it. And I got so many nice letters when I retired. But we started a lot of programs in Duluth that they never had before, and so I'll go through some of them a little bit later. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, as you can tell. But it doesn't help. It's, I just started losing it about 3 days ago. The next, I think we should go to the next one, yeah. This is when I went to, the Salvation Army is a great big entity. I've never been any place in the United States for any convention or anything that I haven't been impressed. But Canada invited the United States up to see them and have their international convention up there. And at that convention, I was really surprised because I got an award. The Salvation Army is divided into 4 territories in the United States, and each territory has divisions. Our division is Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And then, of course, you have your individuals. So for me, in the United States, to get an award, only 4 people out of all the Salvation Army people in the United States and Canada, there was only 4 people that got this award, and I was one of them. And I'm still very humbled by that. It was for some of the programs. The other person in the picture is my daughter, who's now in heaven. But she enjoyed that moment so much. And that motto there, one life at a time, is basically something that we really particularly have to think about, because everybody that walks in that's got a problem, particularly when you're working for the Salvation Army, it's a big problem to them. It might be a small problem to you, but it's a very big problem for them. And if you can help solve that, it's wonderful. And that's why I became a grant writer, worked with HUD in Minneapolis, worked with Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless, worked with the city of Duluth, everybody that I could even beg and borrow money from. So I became a pretty good prolific grant writer because I'm persistent. So that was the award that I won for that persistence. Next. No, this one is what? Oh, this is my time at Kiwanis. I had the Salvation Army, and then I belonged to Kiwanis. I was the first woman in our club to join Kiwanis. 1987, gentlemen, you let women into Kiwanis. And I was the first one in our club. And from then on, I rose to be president. And from president, I became governor. And that is also of Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. That was a lot of fun. And did a lot of traveling in the 3 states and talked to a lot of wonderful people. But I have to tell you a funny story, because we have what they call, we have clubs where the senior citizens are mostly in. And so they want their own club, and the younger businessmen have theirs. And is anybody here in Kiwanis? Nope. So the seniors have their club, and the younger ones that are still working have their club. And every time I had to visit as the first woman governor, every time I had to visit one of the senior clubs, it was really funny. One club did not want to give me a seat. And the protocol is when I go to visit, I'm supposed to be sitting at the head of the table. And one club didn't have a seat for me to sit on at all. It was so funny. I had to finally walk over there and tell them, look, I have to sit. I'm the governor. So they finally got up and, kind of begrudgingly let me sit. But by the end of the year, they got used to it, and then we all became friends again. So, but it was interesting because some of the wives were more upset than the husbands were that they let women in. But now women are in all of these clubs now. So it's just another hallmark moment So this is my 30 years. We go back to IDD, and some of that kudos is when you contribute to IDD every year, you get an award. And then this is just these are the awards that I got for promoting IDD. I was very, very interested in it because it really attacks so many children around the world. Can you imagine 2 billion people having a thyroid problem because just for the lack of plain salt? And that is still true today. So it's good that they still have the IDD program. And that's Bernadine Martin Day up there. What slide are we on? Last one. Yeah, these are awards that I received. It's very, very nice to get an award, but I think the biggest award you can get is when somebody walks in, you helped a long time ago, and they walk into your office and just give you a big hug and say, because you gave me housing and you helped me with my child and you helped me with food, I was able to go back to school, and now I'm teaching in one of the schools. That's the biggest reward you can ever get. Or some woman that comes in and she's probably my age, and she needs to have something leaked in her house, and she doesn't have the money to pay for a fumigator and get it cleaned out. And it's usually something you don't do. Usually when you get something from a grant writer, they're really specific. But you just think, you know what, I'm going to break the rules this time. And they're going to understand. So you give her the money to clean out her house so she can stay living in it. Those are I can go on and on and on about how good it is to feel that when you have money in your hand to be able to give to somebody. But that money is available through Housing and Urban Development, federal government. You just got to be persistent. And it's Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless. I don't know, are they still? Minnesota for the Homeless is another area where if you need to get your local Salvation Army or whoever handles it can apply for grants. There's grants, local grants, foundations are good. City, my first grant that I ever got got so dang mad at the county, St. Louis County, which was right across the street from my very first employment. I didn't know any better. I walked across the street, said I wanted to see the top boss, and walked upstairs and said, look, I'm tired of getting called at 11 o'clock at night to go out and give somebody a hotel room. So I want some money. And you know, his name is Carl Nolenberger. And in my packet, I have a wonderful letter from him from years later. But he never let me forget that either. But he did I did get the money. He had to go to, because it's all of St. Louis County. So he had to go to the county board and all of that. But I did get the money. And that was my first money, and I thought, well, that's easy. I'm going to try the federal government. And sure enough, I got a grant from the federal government. And then I kept getting them because I was good with the first one. And then I went to the state of Minnesota. and they had money. And I got money from them, too. City of Duluth went to the city council, said, I want some money. And they gave me money. The big thing is you just have to sit down and learn how to grant write. But basically, grant writing is not that simple. You'd have to know what your need is. It's got to be a real need. How are you going to provide that need? How are you going to report it? I mean, I've written grants that are just 2 pages. But you just need, and you need statistics. You need to kind of have a little bit of proof. So you need to get letters of backup. And then I went from $20,000 grants to $1 million grants. So we did end up building houses in Rochester. We built in Mankato. We built homeless shelters in 3 or 4 of them in Duluth. One in Virginia. So all with your tax dollars, basically. Anyway, do you have any questions about the Salvation Army?
What I like about them is that they're nonprofit.
Pardon?
Aren't they nonprofit?
They're nonprofit, yes. They have, they're structured, they keep in all my years, I've been there for 30 some years total, because I ended up working in divisional headquarters, just doing grant writing, and that's in Roseville. I can't remember. What was the question again?
What I like about Salvation Army is that they're nonprofit.
Oh, yes, they are definitely nonprofit, yeah, and you've got to prove that. Yeah. They have a change of officers quite often, so no officer stays in one Salvation Army very long. I think the average is 5 to 6 years at the max. Salvation Army is a church, definitely a church, but it has, like, we had a gym, but it does serve the people. I loved all my time working there. I thought it was a great organization, but it's only as good as your local, where you live supports it. Excuse me for my really rough voice. I'm losing it.
Questions? Just a minute.
What you did when you were in the United States Air Force. Yeah,
She got it.
She wanted to know what I was doing when I was in the Air Force, and I was learning Morse code because they were sending the men over. That was during the Korean War, and they were sending men overseas. So they decided they were going to train women to do that. And it was, and I don't remember it, I can tell you that. But it was really grueling because we learned you remember the old typewriter where you had to really push down hard? So you had some earphones, on going da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and then you had to type that on one of those typewriters. And one girl in my class, must have been 35 people in my class, women, and one really lost her cool, and she took off the earphones, didn't throw those, she picked up the typewriter and threw it. That was the end of that. It's funny, that's the only thing I remember really of that class. So that's what I did, is, oh, thank you. Well, I think I learned something in the military that really rolled over to the Salvation Army, because they're based on a quasi-military. They're quasi-military. They got corps. That's what their churches are called, is corps, and they got captains and generals, and it works for them. And I think it works really well for them. I'm not sure I want my church to be that way, but they're not connected. They all connected together in some way when you because they get together, like Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota will have some kind of meeting. Then they have one for the United States. But the Salvation Army is all over the world, I think in 88 countries. So that's a lot of, and there's one guy that is the head. He's the general. Any other questions on the Salvation Army?
I just have a couple of memories. One is my mother, when she was a child, said that one year the Salvation Army brought them their Christmas because they were very poor. They couldn't have Christmas that year. And the Salvation Army brought that Christmas. And the other memory is when Jack and I were traveling in a motorhome, and we went to Kissimmee to help out after the tornado hit. And it was, well, as you can imagine, devastation. We went first to the Red Cross, and they said, no, we can't use your help. But the Salvation Army put us to work, and there was work, plenty. So I have a high regard for that.
The Salvation Army depends heavily on people, just ordinary people coming forward. Most of your disaster people are just people that have volunteered, like you said, you did, that volunteers. You get a shirt, a Salvation Army shirt, and then you become pretty, you are part of the Army as a volunteer. But we have a lot of people, that's all they do is disaster work. So you can call them when you need them. And because most of the people that we had most of the people that worked like on 9/11, we had a big, huge warehouse full of stuff. The United States was so generous in filling that warehouse with what was ever needed. UPS trucks came in, didn't charge us a thing. They did all the transportation, and but most of the people working there were just plain people like you. In fact, when I was there for 2 weeks. That's all they allow you to, because it was what I did was pretty intensive. But you'd have to have a mental check before you even left. But most of the people there working in that area were just people that had volunteered like you did. And they depend on that heavily on volunteers. They can't do it themselves. So I think if you ever go to a Salvation Army in your neighborhood or whatever, you're going to find that most, like I had a volunteer that ran my hunt lunch program. I have to tell you one story, though. That is the funniest story of my 35 years at the Salvation Army. one guy knocked on my door. I had a hot lunch program in Duluth. And somebody came and said, there's somebody at the back door that wants to see you. They got a donation. So I went back there, and the guy told me, he said, can you use ducks? Can you use duck? He said, the duck, plural. And I go, yes. And I said, is it one? And he goes, no, I have a lot of them. And I go, oh, definitely. We have a hot lunch program. We can feed the community and everything. Well, he said, I got a truck down there. I got to run down and get it. So he went and got his truck and pulled it up. And you probably know what was in it. Live ducks. All live ducks needing to be their necks gone and their feathers gone before you, and cleaned out their insides before you could cook them. So, you know what I did? Called on my Kiwanis Club. And they actually did it. They asked the city where they called the city, asked them where they could park the truck. And they actually wrung their necks and whatever you do to get, and cleaned them and got it up. It took, actually we had 4 Kiwanis clubs in Duluth. It took all 4 of them to do it.
So you had a bunch of hunters.
Yeah, we did. And yeah, I don't know where even, you know what? I was so mad at the guy, I didn't even ask him where he got these ducks. Oh, I was going to tell him to take a hike at first. And I almost did, except I had 2 Kiwanis fellows that used to serve the food at my lunch program, and it was about that time. So they were there, and they kind of come on to see what the commotion was. And they said, no, we'll set it up with the Kiwanis clubs, and we'll take care of it. So they went out to some farm with the ducks and did it. And so we had duck fur. We froze some of it, but...
So they taste good?
I never ate any. After seeing them live, I couldn't. But I have no idea. Once he said they're live, I just said, you take care of it. Because they were going to the guy had to follow them wherever they were going. And I just got them back, were already done, and some of them frozen. But that was my favorite story of all times is somebody thinking they can give you all these live ducks.
So you don't have a turkey story?
No, I don't. No, I don't have. I got some other stories, but not one quite like that one. Yeah, that
Other
was.
questions?
Anything else? Anybody else want? So the best thing to learn about the Army is go to your local one and see if they need any help with particular disaster services. It's because it's very interesting work. I loved going to the disasters because it's people really need the help when there is a disaster. Mm-hmm. Pardon?
Paid.
Oh, I got paid regular paycheck, and I got paid well too. That's another thing that people probably misunderstand about the Salvation Army. They pay well, and they have a pension plan. They got everything any business had. You get a yearly raise, and a lot of it would be based on your production. Of course, if the more money I made, the no, that didn't even count at all. But they do pay well, and they have a pension plan, and they have a bookkeeping department that keeps really strict. They have also a healthcare plan that you can join, and these are optional. I had my pension plan somewhere else, but time. Any more questions? You're welcome. Been fun.
Bernadine, thank you very much for all your contributions and the impact you've had upon people, and congratulations on your awards. We are privileged to have you at Ling Bloomston, and I hope you don't have trouble getting a seat at a table.